It's important before you start deploying Windows 10 to make sure that any applications you have installed on perhaps your Windows 7 computers or earlier still function with Windows 10. For the most part, they probably will. But if you experience problems, check for application updates. Consider upgrading to a more recent version of the application. And if necessary, create a compatibility fix using the Application Compatibility Tools. These are part of the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit. Alternatively, you can build virtual machines to host the application. So for example, you might build a Windows XP virtual machine and then run your line of business application that works on Windows XP within that virtual machine. A shim is the term used to describe an application fix. Consider using a shim when the vendor that created the application is no longer in business. You don't have access to the source code for the application, and so you can't fix the application to work with Windows 10. Perhaps the vendor is still in business but has yet to create an update or a fix that will allow your application to function correctly in Windows 10. If your company created the application, it's a line of business application that you designed and implemented yourselves, then you may consider using a shim to fix the application. If you decide to implement a shim, you need to use the Application Compatibility Toolkit. Use the following high-level procedure to create an application fix. First of all, build a representative Windows 10 computer. This computer should be typical for the sort of device that you will deploy within your organization. Install any of the required applications onto that representative device. Run the applications to see if you can encounter any problems. If you do, install the Application Compatibility Tools. Open the tool called the Compatibility Administrator. Now there are two versions of this, a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version. You'll choose the version that's appropriate for the architecture of the application that you're using. Create a custom database, that's a simple task. Create a new application fix, also a simple task, both of which I'll show you shortly. And then run your application and perform the series of standard tasks, the sort of tasks that your users are typically going to perform. Then save the Application Compatibility Fix file, or shim. Once you've got the file, you can apply that to all of the devices within your organization. Now you might decide to manually go around and install the file, or you may decide to deploy it using group policy, or you may decide to deploy the application fix as part of your initial Windows 10 deployment. So you apply it to the Windows 10 image before deploying it. In the demonstration, I'll show you how to use the Application Compatibility Tools. Okay, so we're ready to perform upgrades on various computers around our organization, but we've discovered that there are some potential problems with some of the applications. We have a test application on this virtual machine that will simulate some of the sorts of problems that you might experience, and then we'll take a look at how we can create a workaround, a patch if you like, a shim for that particular application. The application is called Stock Viewer. And you can see straight away that it wants us to be an administrator. So click OK to that message. And then within the application, I can run some of the options. So for example, I can say, show me options, and it comes up with an error message. I can say, show me a star, and it tells me that the application needs to be running under Windows XP, not Windows 10. And I can click on trends here, and again we get a not very helpful message here to show that there are problems. So this application isn't going to work properly under Windows 10. Now we have a number of different options, and we could create a virtual machine running Windows XP and install the application within that environment. But we can also try and patch the application. Let's take a look at how we could do that. So let me close the application, and then I'm going to open up one of the compatibility tools, part of the Windows ADK. So down here I've got Windows Kits, and I've got the Compatibility Administrator tool, which I'm going to open now. There are two versions, 32-bit and 64-bit, depending on the application that you're using. This is a 32-bit app. I'm going to create a new database for this fix. The name of the application to be fixed is called Stock Viewer. I don't know the vendor. I need to locate the executable for the program. There it is. Now we already know that it needs to run under Windows XP, so we can select Run in Compatibility Mode for Windows XP. That was one of the messages that we saw. We also saw that it required that we ran as administrator. So let's scroll down into these other compatibility modes. They're alphabetical, so that helps. Run as admin. There may be some additional things that you discover. There's a lot of compatibility parameters here. We don't need any of these right now. And then we'll say we're finished. So what I now need to do is to save this. I'm going to call this stock viewer fix. And for my convenience, I'm going to put it on my desktop. All fixes are stored as SDB files. And although I can simply apply it using an executable locally, I can also distribute these fixes using something like group policy or creating a script or using some other mechanism for applying the patch to a large number of computers. I can close down the compatibility administrator now. And there's our fix file. To apply that to the application, I need to open a command prompt. PowerShell will do actually, in admin mode. And then I need to run the SDB inst program against that particular file. So that's stored under the users folder. I'm signed in as Andrew and it's on my desktop. And I called it stock viewer fix.sdb. And as I said, clearly running this on every single computer, if you have thousands of computers with the application installed, is a bit too time consuming. So you'd use some mechanism to distribute the fix. It's applied that fix. So now if I run the stock viewer application, it doesn't prompt me about being an administrator, it just confirms elevation to admin. And now I can say trends, that now functions. I can choose tools, show me a star. And although that's not exactly thrilling, it does in fact function. So it appears as if the fix has solved the issue with this application. Consider using a shim when you have no other alternative. It's possible your vendor may have produced an update to the application, or it's possible that if it's an internal application that some of your team can develop the application to function within Windows 10, or you could consider running in a VM as we discussed earlier. But you can also create these fixes and distribute that if you have no other option. In the demonstration, I showed you how to use the application compatibility tools to create a fix and how to apply that fix.